Hi, and welcome back to Bitcoin and Beyond. I am Melanie Carstens, and every week, right here, we explore culture, creativity, and technology in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Before we kick off, a reminder that if you do enjoy the show, you can support me and my journey creating independent Bitcoin media via Lightning or via Xverse or Leather through mail.btc. Uh, you can follow the link in my bio or head over to the link in my bio. If you would like more information with regards to that. And as always, this conversation is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Today, we are talking about building financial infrastructure on Bitcoin. And my guest is the co founder of VoltFi and has background that spans 2 decades in operations, product development, finance, and early stage Bitcoin startup building. VoltFi Labs is building Bitcoin native derivatives on stacks and exploring how to convert market volatility into on chain yield. Guy, welcome to the show.
So first, thank you so much for having me here. Really happy. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Thank you for agreeing to join. So let's jump right in. I'm going to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests when we open the show, and that is, what is your Bitcoin story? How did Bitcoin find you, or how did you find Bitcoin? Where was it? Where were you? When was it? And what was it that made you stay?
Yeah, that's an interesting story because I started my career in traditional finance, and in the first few years of Bitcoin, I would hear about Bitcoin, but to be really transparent, I wasn't afraid, but I wasn't sure, and it took me a while, a couple years, to really sit down and understand and do my research and really try to see its capabilities in future perspective. So it took me a while. Today, looking back, I wish I was much faster on my feet, but I think it got there just in time.
Yeah, yeah. So many people do say that. It doesn't matter when you got in unless it was literally in the first, few early years. But so many people do say that. And somebody said to me once, it was very interesting. It doesn't matter whether I got in then or now because it's still only going one way. So you still have the opportunity to to invest. It would have just been a bigger investment.
No, I agree 100%. I believe Bitcoin so much, and I see its potential for the future ahead. The world is digital. The world is focused now on AI. AI is currency. It's going to be a digital currency. And we know that Bitcoin has all the capabilities of being that asset, the adoption, and the security. And part of our job at VoltFi is to create rails and infrastructure to make it a better asset to hold and to trade from here on.
Mm. I'm excited to get into that. It's a huge interest of mine. Creating safe rails for AI and for human sovereignty as we move into um, this uncharted territory. But we'll sort of get there. I'm glad you brought it up. You mentioned as well that you had a background in traditional finance. So before we go into VoltFi, let's take a step backwards and let's talk about your early life. Uh, who were you as a young man? And you mentioned finance. Were there already signs as a young man that you would end up in finance? Or were you
Well,
a poet?
I studied manufacturing engineering in college back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm not a programmer, but I know all the logic and I love engineering. And started my career at Bear Stearns in the private client segment and understanding operations and back office, and then moved to a large hedge fund in Latin America, where I did a lot of research and traded equities and traded derivatives, mainly options.
Mm,
That was my that was where my heart was at the time,
mm,
and what I did to start. Amazing experience. But down the line, I saw that my entrepreneur mindset was speaking louder. So I left finance and spent many years in consumer products in Latin America, doing everything from operations to sales to finance to HR to marketing, product development, and that was my the first part of my career. Amazing experience, amazing friends, amazing partners. But going back to what we said in the beginning about Bitcoin, once I really understood Bitcoin, I saw that with my finance background, I saw the possibility of creating something that was to the world with an impact that would impact millions of lives, not just a regional consumer product enterprise impacting consumers in the short area of the term geography. And I began to move towards Bitcoin. And to understand Bitcoin, you got to understand the technology, you got to understand the space. Of course, before Bitcoin, I went through all that DeFi summer and NFTs because it was much easier to get exposed in that side of the blockchain and in that stage. And once Taproot happened, ordinals, and all this new development on Bitcoin, I saw that it was the right time to dive head in. And
mm.
I've been working for the last 2 years on mainly Bitcoin, and the last 12 months as a co-founder of a very interesting project.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into all of that. Um, yeah, your early journey. So you were saying you kind of dipped your toe in outside of Bitcoin because if we go back prior to ordinals, which I think really unleashed the idea that you could build on Bitcoin, even though there were people sort of like Manib and Stacks um, working on it, it still wasn't an idea that really was out there as public knowledge. So most people kind of went in on the, like you say, the sort of Ethereum and then NFT route. Is that what you're saying? You were kind of dipping your toe in on that side first before you. When was it? What I'm sort of working around to ask is, when did you kind of discover Stacks? When did that happen?
I did my first asset movements on Stacks a little over 2 years ago.
Okay.
Okay, so I've been going through all this last 25 months, 27 months of Stacks development. We started developing on layer one, but we moved to Stacks because we see the great perspective of Stacks from now on. It's something that's already on mainnet. It's a proven business model. You get the Nakamoto update. You have the low fees. You have the speed, and you have a huge team and community focused on the development of the ecosystem, which I feel that is ahead of the pack
Mm.
on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Manib and the fact that he's kind of had this idea and stuck to it for over a decade, I think long over a decade. Um, I think probably one of the early, he's almost, I mean, were there any other people doing it even, back then? So yeah, I'm excited to see it, what happened with the ordinals and bringing it out into a more public arena for the idea that you could sort of come on and build something on Bitcoin. So yeah, you mentioned um, your career prior to becoming a founder with VoltFi. You were leading Centennial Alimentos. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Because
Yes, yes.
am I? Okay, and there you were doing, like you said, I mean, a myriad of things, right? Sales, marketing, logistics, and so on and so on. Talk to me about that time. Why you were with the same company for 2 decades? I mean, that is, was it, what was it? Is it that you were changing careers inside of that? How did you, or positions, I mean,
Uh,
roles?
I changed many roles and careers. I founded the company
Okay.
up to a point that I managed 220 people uh, working in the team. And I was able to accomplish a lot of the goals that I had for my the early career
Mm,
in the venture side. And it was an amazing experience. But I got to a point that with the advancement of all this technology, with the remote work, the chance of working with people in Asia, in Europe, at the same time, the rise in productivity, I saw that my dreams were bigger, and it
mm.
was time to move on.
Was it
That's
difficult?
oh, it's always difficult, but I accomplished all the goals that I set to accomplish. I came out very strong. I have a strong background in business development, in partnerships, let's say ecosystem growth, because in the distribution side, it's an ecosystem when you
Mm.
produce and sell products. So a lot of the knowledge that I learned, I apply to the blockchain and crypto because we cannot do anything by ourselves. We need a community. We need people. We got to inspire people. We got to have partners. We got to look at the finance side of operations, investors. So it all makes sense for what I have on the table to create something that's sustainable and big for the future.
And then Bitcoin, I'm sort of just looping around a little bit here, but so you've made this decision now after these sort of 2 decades to move into Bitcoin. Um, and you spoke about it just now, but was it so much more than a financial, building financial rails? Was it a greater, the sort of ethos of Bitcoin? Let's talk about that and how that appealed to you. What we are building in creating a better world in a myriad of ways, from culture through to finance.
Melanie, you reached a very interesting point. I spent most of my life in Brazil. It's a great country, but it's a less developed country than the US and many other countries. Throughout my life, I've seen many currency changes in Brazil. I've seen political problems, uh, bad and good management of a country, and how unsafe we are with our fiat money. People in the US, in Europe, and many countries, they are not afraid of this kind of changes because that never happened. But with my experience, looking at Bitcoin, a strong, decentralized, secure network that you can hold value in it. You can hold generational wealth in it. It makes all the sense. And once I saw it and understood it, I saw that the future for me was on Bitcoin because Bitcoin solves a lot of the problems out there in a lot of the countries. You know, there are so many countries with so many problems that a strong, decentralized uh, way of storing value makes a lot of sense.
Mm. Yeah, interesting that you said that as well, because I'm in Africa. So I think when you talk to, people like you and me who understand how inflation can, or how a bad currency can truly destroy a nation and its people, from education to just basic living standards, there's no government to pick up the pieces often at times, so I think you also become a lot stronger and a lot more open to this kind of thing because we don't have a safety net. We used to living in unsafe.
Yes, when I was a kid, for an example, there were months that inflation in Brazil was close to 100%
Sure.
in 1 month. It's it's very hard to explain.
Mm,
You see what happened in Argentina. in the last several years, how the Argentinian peso lost value,
Mm,
how the poor people of Argentina got poorer.
mhm,
And one of the things that I see on Bitcoin is that, of course, one Bitcoin is equal one Bitcoin. But the same time, one Bitcoin is equal a certain amount of dollars, which is stronger than many local currencies.
mm,
So once you understand Bitcoin and you are from a less developed country
mhm,
with a weak currency, and you understand the volatility also of the assets, you are still storing your money in dollar terms,
mhm, mhm.
which makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
because dollar will always increase in value compared to weaker currencies.
Mhm,
So for me, all the boxes were ticked.
mm,
I'm here on Bitcoin for the last several months building because I see that once you have Bitcoin, you're better off than everyone.
mhm.
But imagine if you can get some kind of yield on your Bitcoin.
I know.
That's the perfect world.
Mhm.
That's why we created VoltFi. That's why we built and we like the space.
I love that passion. I think it's. I interviewed a gentleman recently. They have kicked off the largest treasury here in Africa, and he said something so interesting. He said, if you are trying to build your business and you own an apartment in Lagos, in Nigeria, and you go to Canada and you try and get a loan from Canada or America, th- you you just simply are going to get an impossible interest rate for you to then build out with that or loan it out, in terms of him working in finance. Whereas if he owns Bitcoin and he tries to get a loan internationally for his company to build his company, create jobs, or whatever it is he's doing, it's an entirely different story. And traditionally, a person living in Nigeria could only have the investment of property and equity in their country. Whereas this now allows you to play in the global economy and take part in those preferential rates that you might not see
No,
in
that is
your.
very true. That is very true, and there's so much more for Bitcoin. But again, we're very early.
Mm,
You can have your Bitcoin, you can borrow against it, but it's very limited. And in order to do that, you gotta send it elsewhere. You lose your custody, you lose the security of it. So the big development and the big boom out there for the future is how to do that on chain, on
mm,
layer one or layer two, in a way that you actually keep your custody and you control it.
mhm, absolutely. Um, okay, so
Even
you
by
then, yeah, go ahead.
talking about Bitcoin, once my co-founder and I got together, we began talking, doing a lot of user interviews, talking to a lot of people. And what we kept hearing from Bitcoin holders and other crypto asset holders was the volatility theme. Volatility, 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 volatility.
Mhm,
Because people are afraid of volatility. But professional investors, professional traders, they love volatility. They understand volatility because volatility is what gives an asset life. And if you can tame and you have the ways and tools to trade volatility, you can get yield from volatility.
mhm,
That's the major difference. But volatility, it's a complicated theme for degens and for early users, and you
yeah.
need more uh, experienced builders to work on the volatility side of assets. And that's why we love it so much. We see so much potential
Mm,
because you see the decrease in Bitcoin price recently. Now Bitcoin is coming back again to life. The historical volatility of the asset in the last 10 years is going down, but it's still high.
mhm,
But we're creating tools to use this volatility to get yield,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm. Look, I mean, I did a talk recently, and I didn't realize it would be to a lot of bankers. It was a Bitcoin conference, but the tickets were sort of bought up by a lot of people in the banking sector, and there was a lot of tax talk and that sort of thing. And one of my slides was Bitcoin versus the bank, and I had done an experiment where I'd contacted the bank, and I said to them, "Okay, I'd like to open an account linked to my husband's account. What would be my bank charges?" And they were roughly sort of 100 Rand, okay, a month. So then I did a slide about what would happen if I put away 100 Rand a month into the bank for 5 years, and what would happen if I put 100 Rand into Bitcoin for 5 years. And so I mean, where I'm going with this is sort of pulling back. There is everyday volatility, and month to month. So this is what I want to ask you about: is again the two schools of thought. My slide represented what it would look like if we invested 100 Rand a month for 5 years into Bitcoin, would give you about 16 to 18,000 Rand. If you put 100 Rand into the bank and there were no bank charges, you would have 6,000 Rand. Okay, this is over 5 years. So that represents Bitcoin as an incredible savings tool. So that's the one side of Bitcoin. Then there's the layer that you're talking about that is not only saving your Bitcoin, but earning additional yield on your Bitcoin. And then there's the people who say, okay, which is true, we have to spend Bitcoin as well. Because if we're not spending it, then it's a vault. And that then gives us another problem. So there's my curiosity is, how does that work? Because so many people respond differently to that. Spending Bitcoin is scary because of the volatility. So we have the stable coin. So if you can just talk me through, for people, for normies, the reason I'm asking this question is because I keep trying to share with people that circle of, you save your Bitcoin, you earn with your Bitcoin, and what do you spend? Do you spend your Bitcoin as well?
No one is saving forever. Uh, but let's start with the beginning. If you have the option of saving in your local currency or saving on Bitcoin, there is a lot of uncertainty for new holders of Bitcoin regarding the future, because you find it you find information from friends, from media, everywhere, that Bitcoin is dead, Bitcoin is not gonna sustain for the future. There's this big new computer coming in that's gonna break all the keys, you know. So people are afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people. On the other hand, if you save your money on your local currency, which is losing value year by year,
Yeah.
you know down the line that you're gonna have some paper fiat uh, holdings.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to buy less than you actually buy today. You lose power, but at the end of the day, you feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part of the education out there from everyone on Bitcoin to show that what is positive about the asset, how strong it is, and you increase the adoption. As we see in the last several years, adoption is only increasing. And people should study, kids should study. You see El Salvador, they're teaching Bitcoin to kids.
Mm.
That's an amazing experience. These
Yeah.
kids, in 10 years, they're going to be ahead of a lot of people. On on the other hand, spending Bitcoin, my views are, why would you spend an asset that's going to increase in value above everything else today, you know? So Bitcoin, of course, if you own Bitcoin and you wanna pay your bills, of course it's your money or your assets. You do whatever you want, you know. But if you don't need them, if you're holding a portion of your portfolio on Bitcoin, because you gotta diversify. I'm not saying that you gotta be all in. Each
Mm-hmm.
person has a risk profile and should follow it. But if you have part of your assets on Bitcoin, which you believe is a strong asset, which it is, and it's going to keep increasing in value year after year above anything else, you should hold on to it.
Hmm.
But again, there are a lot of people holding Bitcoin today that are older, that entered the space 10 years ago and wanna get some of their profits out. So you gotta create the rails also for this asset exchange. I'm not saying
Hmm.
money exchange because it's not a money, it's a commodity, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a worldwide asset. So
Mm.
you gotta have a worldwide rail for any kind of holder or user or customer that desires to do any kind of transaction at that time. You know, so
Mm.
just generalizing a little bit that why it's so important to have the whole ecosystem built.
Mm. Well, look, I mean, in Africa, we've got a huge problem with, people who are unbanked, who are unable to get bank accounts. And so this is creating um, there's a big Bitcoin um, economy, of people buying and selling, of trading, using it in the rural areas, to on the there's these sort of we have these they're called spaza shops. They're sort of these tiny little shops where you can buy local goodies, and yeah, it's fascinating. It's becoming a real currency here in South Africa.
Yeah, the challenge regarding unbanked uh, people in the last several years with the technology in many countries with these new digital banks where you can open, if you have the basic documentation and you can open a bank account and you can have a credit card without fees, a banking account without fees, that solves a lot of the problems out there. For Bitcoin, in many countries, in order for you to buy Bitcoin, you gotta be banked. Unless you you have a smartphone and then you download a wallet and you trade with someone your service or an asset for that Bitcoin. So it's not so easy right now. And one of the case that holds Bitcoin down as a medium of exchange are the fees and the mempool times.
Mm.
Because you want to buy something right now,
Yeah.
you want to pay and receive it right now.
Yeah.
And that's like one of those huge areas that a lot of very smart people and passionate people are working on in order to solve those problems. Because if you look at stacks, you can, if you have your wallet with assets on stacks, you can trade it in an instant. You know, it's very
Mhm.
fast, it's very cheap. So
Mm.
there are rails out there that are focusing on improving this problem, which is a very big problem. If you're
Mm.
buying an apartment, thousands of dollars, you can pay $30 in Bitcoin fees. But if you're a teenager and you're buying a chocolate bar, you cannot spend more than pennies on fees. You know, so that's one of the challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, we use there was a guy here who developed like a QR code app, and we use so that you use Moon Wallet, and you put the money, the Bitcoin in Moon, and then it sits in Moon, and you scan with your phone in this app. So it's I mean, what I love about it, what I love, I think, so much about it is with traditional finance, there's kind of like very simple route as to how it works. And everybody uses that same path. We all operate with money on a very clear, structured way in the real world. Whereas the beauty of what's going on now is people are building so many different things. Just like I said, now there's so much you can do. We're saying, is it a currency? Is it an asset? Should we spend it? How do we get yield? So it's a very exciting time, I think, to be building anything on Bitcoin.
For the people that are watching us, the slightly older ones that remember how the internet began. For the
Yeah.
young ones, the internet began many years ago that you would connect your computer to your phone and you dial somewhere and wait for that miracle signal to come to
Yeah.
your computer, you know?
Yeah.
Today, you
I
get your
remember.
phone, you're like 110% connected, either through 5G or Wi-Fi, or
Yeah.
either through another person's phone. So, okay, it took time. Let's talk about the traditional finance. How many years and how many trillions of dollars to build all these rails?
Mm.
Bitcoin, it's less than 20 years old,
Yeah.
The tools, let's only talk about Bitcoin blockchain right now. The tools for Bitcoin blockchain are evolving, but
Hmm.
they're just evolving faster in the last 30 months.
Yeah.
So it's so early. And of course, the cycle, it's a 4-year cycle. Let's see this cycle right now.
Hmm.
But there's the volatility, there are the ups and downs, the stomach. Now we have the institutions, the banks, the companies, the countries, the foundations, everyone else looking at the asset. If we hold it, build on it in order to expand and look down in the future and the possibilities with the increased adoption,
Hmm.
man, it's unbelievable. I have no words to express, the potential. But
Yeah.
of course, each and every one of us look at the dollar price in the screen, you know.
Yeah. Well, you got to try. You got to. I think if you really are committed to building on Bitcoin, I think you got to take a step back and actually not look at it and just trust. And it's interesting that you mentioned the dial-up modem because I remember those days. I remember, having a record player, and I remember the CD Walkman. We were talking about it the other day, where you would put your CD in a Walkman, and then you couldn't really walk around with it because it kept um, jumping. You know what I mean? So the music wasn't real, but those foamy little headphones. So I think when you've lived through the way we've lived through the movement of technology, from listening to, having no cell phones
Mhm.
to having what this device that we have now, from a fax machine to this, how we communicate now. I think you can start, you are able to step back and picture what it could be like. The fact that you had to, I was thinking the other day, you would have to, initially, you could only see somebody by looking at them. Then you could see somebody by seeing a painting of them, which took like forever to make. Then you could see somebody from a photograph. Then it was a moving picture that had no voice. Then it was a video in black and white with the voice, and then color. You see where I'm going? So you can imagine, I was saying to my son, he doesn't have to worry if I'm going to die, because I'm not. Because my grandchildren, instead of picking up a photograph or a painting, will just be able to be like, Mel, and I'll move and I'll speak, I think. So you kind of, that's where I'm also interested. You mentioned AI just now, and kind of how do we create um, money that keeps us sovereign, or units of exchange, whatever we want to call this currency, that keeps us sovereign moving into this crazy future that we're moving into, um, that keeps us safe from, because in the agentic web, right, our agents are going to need currency to spend on our behalf, but we also don't want them accessing our currency that we don't want them to access.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. But again, you're gonna. What I like about the space that goes with my personality is that I'm a dreamer. And I love to dream about the future, what's gonna happen, because it's very easy for us to 10 years from now, with all the great things that will be happening in 10 years from now to say, listen, a couple people dreamed of something or thought of something. It was easy, it seems so obvious. But again, if you go back to today, you gotta dream, you gotta aim, you gotta try and go for it. You cannot give up, and you gotta be able to be flexible, to pivot. There's all these rules that you
Yeah.
gotta do as a builder and a dreamer, but that's part of life. That's the passion of the action. But I believe that we're gonna be able to control the AI and segment. And why Bitcoin is so amazing? It's because it's decentralized.
Mm.
The AI, let's see if there's an evil AI down the line, the Terminator of the future. It's going to be even harder to access and control the whole blockchain. It's only increasing. You see the hash rate. The hash rate's like it's a huge line going up to the right, to the infinite.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
get this new NVIDIA chips improving every single day. You see all this power, and Bitcoin is gonna continue to appreciate in price
Mm.
because fiat is going down in price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I see it.
And it's not a safe currency in this new intelligent era. It's just not safe, fiat. And the structures on which we use it are not built for the world that we are building, this artificial intelligence. I mean, how do we protect? So that's why, I mean, what I'm trying to say is why I think as well, Bitcoin is a hedge against that as well.
Listen, I love one of the says that Michael Saylor talks about buying a block in Manhattan 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
Mm.
It's finite. Manhattan it's not gonna increase in size. You have high and fast liquidity. That's it. And Bitcoin, with the Satoshi idea of having 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. You can divide it very easily. You can move it very easily. It helps with all the problems you're mentioning regarding the loss of value and the fiat and the decentralization, the control of government. There could be an asset in the future. Yeah, it's always possible. Took 15, 16, 17 years for Bitcoin to get here. Now with AI, will there be an asset in a shorter period of time to also add to it? It could be possible. But right now we have Bitcoin. There's so much more to be done.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go back to your journey. So you but then it sort of started off with the Bitcoin Startup Lab. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about pivoting into this kind of like Bitcoin founder and your journey with Bitcoin Startup Lab, meeting your co founder, how that kind of happened. Is that someone who is in crypto, not? And so on. So let's just talk about that shift and the early days of VoltFi and the Bitcoin
Yeah,
startup.
I had a friend back in business school that once I mentioned to him that I wanted to pivot to Bitcoin. He directed me to the Bitcoin Startup Lab, which is a very good pre-accelerator on Bitcoin, and they do an amazing job. It's a very harsh program, only for the ones that are very strong with the conviction, but you also learn a lot. You spend 3 months going through classes, meeting people, and you're very encouraged to get the colleagues with different characteristics and get together and explore building ideas. So I was fortunate enough to go twice to the Bitcoin Startup Lab
Sure.
because I like it so much. And after the end of my first stint, I didn't have a project. I began working in a project, but we pivoted. So I went back in again. Uh, and once you do it again with the improving technologies out there, you get more and more knowledge and you
Hmm.
get to meet different people. And in my second time, I hit it off very early with a great guy from California. He worked for AWS database. He's a full stack developer, amazing programmer, a visionary, and him on the tech side and myself doing the rest on the business side. We began talking to users, finding problems out there that there was a need for solution, and that's how we started. And we've been evolving the idea, adding to it. We began by creating a tradable Bitcoin volatility token. Basically, it's like a VIX. What's a VIX? It's a It's a tool that traditional finance prices risk, and you can trade. You can buy that risk or sell that risk. We saw very early on that it was too advanced for testnet, so we began building a more gamified approach on testnet. That's where we are right now, adding to it, creating a community, and it's been an amazing journey so far.
Mm. It sounds fascinating. So let's talk about that. Um, a volatility token. I mean, this is obviously a very novel thing inside of Bitcoin building, but it's something that you are, or traditional finance is familiar with. Is that right?
It is, but basically, it's a very simple idea. Let's say once the markets are fluctuating a lot, like we've seen recently, people get afraid. Once the fluctuation is high enough, this risk will go up. But imagine that you're you see that risk increasing, but you believe so much in the asset that you know that down the line things are going to stable down again. Imagine if you had a tool that you could buy this risk and sell it lower, or you could sell it high and buy it lower and profit from it. So that's something that there is a product market fit, and we're going towards it.
Okay, so explain that to me as a normie, as somebody who's not heavily into DeFi. I can buy somebody's risk.
Imagine
What am
you
I? Am
met,
I
imagine someone you just met on the street of New York that just got mugged, and they're desperate.
right?
Right now, imagine you could sell that desperation because you know in your heart that in 2 months that person is going to be better off, well
Hmm.
again. And you
Hmm.
could buy it at a normal rate. That's what we're doing on DeFi.
So how does that work in practice? So I've got Bitcoin in my wallet, and you've got Bitcoin in your wallet. Now we come to your, or I come to your platform. Then how do how would you explain it to me as somebody who is, basically very not hard. I mean, I understand DeFi and I use it, but I just kind of I want to understand. So what do I
Yeah,
do? I go to your platform and then I
that volatility tool we evolved using in a more gamified approach because as we understood early on for a lot of feedback that it was slightly complex for testnet. It's a product that has product market fit for mainnet. So what we did, we got all this math that we created for it and put under the hood and created a Bitcoin price prediction market, let's say like that.
okay.
And that's what we're testing at this stage on Stacks Testnet. We're very fortunate to be awarded a SIP 10 grant from Stacks.
Mm,
It's an amazing community. We've met people from various layer twos and side chains on Bitcoin, but the Stacks community is like out of this world. We've been welcomed by everyone in a way that's unbelievable. And what
Mm,
we're trying to do right now by improving our product is that you can go there with your Bitcoin, your testnet Bitcoin right now in this stage, and you can pick a Bitcoin price range which you feel it's gonna be tomorrow at
yeah.
this time. If you get it right, you get a fee from it. If you get it wrong, there are certain products that you get some of your money back. But that what we're doing, Mel, right now is testing the code, testing the solution, getting people to use it, in order to get a better product market fit down once we go to mainnet.
Mm. Okay, fascinating. And so, obviously, getting the grant, congratulations. Um, that is obviously a very important part of, or sort of speeding up your roadmap, maybe. I mean, where are you kind of on that? And what can we expect over the next couple of months, the next year? What does that
Yeah,
roadmap look like?
our roadmap is very clear to us. We're right now testing this we call Satoshi options, where you can pick the right Bitcoin price range and get a yield on it. We're testing also insurance solutions on that platform, so you can get part of your money even if you do get the transaction or the bet wrong. We feel that Stacks being very kind to us because it opened its user base. We see that the main advantage of Stacks of being on mainnet with, again, lower fees, fast times is that you help VoltFi go to mainnet much faster.
Mm,
And the grant is just a stepping stone for us to keep adding to our product, to keep iterating, getting feedback, to get something that's ready to users to get their yield, so desired yield on Bitcoin.
mm. What
We're go-
happens? Sorry.
we're also adding. We have a plan on the roadmap to add STX. Uh,
Do
sorry,
you want to grab? Are you okay? Do you want to grab some water? I'll just chat away by myself. Are you okay?
we it's on our roadmap to add STX products also on Stacks because we see it right now as a $1 billion market, which is increasing. It's just the beginning, and a lot of holders of STX out there. We
Mm,
see a possibility of adding runes, Bitcoin native assets. So we're creating a product that's scalable. Of course, right now we focus on a single problem, a single solution. We try to keep as simple as possible. So you go with your Bitcoin and you either buy and sell what we're offering that's priced on volatility, which is very simple. And we don't want to complicate. We understand that there are many players out there trying to get everything at once, and we got to make it simple, and
mm-hmm,
that's part of it. And on Stacks Testnet, we're testing uh, solutions to make sure that we're in the right direction and continue talking to people.
mm. Amazing. I think I'm so excited. I love speaking to founders like yourself. Um, because it's so inspiring, not only about Bitcoin, but about stacks. You know, I think the community is very tight and very close knit. And I think a lot of them, it's just this kind of like heads down ethos. It's like, let's build, let's welcome in builders, and let's make Bitcoin better, and so yeah, it's wonderful and exciting to talk to somebody like you who is bringing more use cases to stacks and so to Bitcoin, you know um so yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of our journey, our passion. We gotta add to the Stacks ecosystem, which we know it's a Bitcoin derivative platform, slightly more advanced, but built in a gamified way that gets even the simpler users. We don't wanna we wanna add. We don't wanna subtract. Stacks strong. They show their delivery power. Great, amazing builders on the ecosystem. The foundation, everything is just like great,
Mm,
and it's strong, and it's a light and happy environment that I feel,
mm,
which is out there already on mainnet with all the advantages. So of course there are some things that they're improving, but that's part as builders on blockchain, any blockchain, you gotta keep going. You gotta keep talking to users. You gotta keep improving. No one is perfect. No one will be born from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds without having to take a couple turns. So flexibility is a key,
mhm,
and I also feel that Stacks users, the user base is different because they're more advanced, because they know how to download their Xverse or Ledger wallets. They know how to hold and use their assets. So it's the right user base for us to test what we're building on.
mm. Yeah, I think some important things there. I would like to, you've got an incredible arsenal of experience as a builder and as a founder. Um, so I just want to talk to young builders because, like you said, it's important for us to continue building on stacks and continue growing stacks. So, and I think it is there are a lot of builders and early startups. Um, people on stacks. So let's talk to them for a minute. Let's talk about what it does take. You spoke about Bitcoin Startup Labs. Um, you mentioned that on the first round you didn't really have an idea. Do you not need an idea to go into Bitcoin Startup Lab? How does that work? I just want to sort of find out a little bit about that for people who are interested in exploring that as an option.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about what does an early team look like. You know, these teams are lean, and I kind of want to talk about these lean early startup teams and how to prioritize who to have in your team and how to build that thing, because we're in a world now that is a builder's world. So let's talk to those people.
Yeah, first, the builders cannot be married to their idea. You got to learn that it's the user problem that's key. Is not your passion for what you're building. So you gotta try to look for problems out there. You gotta talk to users. You gotta see what problems they're having, and then you go after solving those problems. That's where the key is. If you
Mm,
go to a program and you're married to the idea, of course it could be a great idea, but you gotta understand early on that might not be the case. And the Bitcoin Startup Lab does a very good job in this deconstructing the way we're built and created to think.
mhm,
And on startups, you gotta think about the user problem, and the rest comes after. And you
mm,
gotta keep the interaction for a team to be successful early on. You gotta have a lean team. You gotta have someone that does the back end, someone that does the front end, and you gotta have a third person that's the business, and the person that will go after talking to users, going after fundraising down the line, going after the operations and the marketing and the X and the spaces and the podcasts. And if you have that strong trio in your pro user problem, and you're consistent and you don't give up and you keep iterating, no one's gonna hold you down. And I
mm,
think that's the key for early builders, early projects out there. That's what I learned early on. I
mm,
come from traditional business and entrepreneurship. If I knew how to focus on the user pain many years ago, in my early journey, man, I would have solved so many of my problems, because in
and-
traditional industry, you first build and then you go after customers.
mhm,
In
Hmm.
tech, in Bitcoin, in blockchain, it's the opposite, you know. If you
Right.
build the most beautiful thing out there and you're not solving anyone's problem, you're not gonna have a single user.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned.
Yeah, brilliant advice. Brilliant advice. How do you go out and find that problem? How do people, so people are listening now and they go, all right, I want to do that. I've got a good team.
Yeah,
Where do I go looking for those problems? Um, because this is to me the biggest problem is that we've got Web 2, we've got the world we live in, and then now
yeah,
we've got this thing that's over there from the real world. So the reason I'm saying this is because it's difficult to find those user problems because the real world is there and we're here, and we're kind of saying, okay, what could the problem be? I think as well, because it's not all about DeFi. We've got to look to culture as well and say, okay, people are going to come here, they're going to make some money. Now, what are they going to do with their money? Traditional, in the real world, you kind of buy art, you're going to invest in property, you can buy a nice watch. You're going to say, okay, I've made some money, I'm going to flex it a little bit now. So, um, a huge part of what I'm interested in is that side of is
yeah. That's the billion-dollar question. That's the challenge for everyone in single, everyone, even
mm,
in non-tech. But I feel that we've been trained from childhood to communicate, but not ask the right questions. And once you begin doing user interviews and learn about it and getting more experience, you begin to ask the right questions. And there are a lot of people out there. I'm not only talking about Bitcoin, I'm talking about if you're going to open a coffee shop down the street, you know? If you talk to people and iterate on your experiences and begin asking the right people the right questions, people love to talk about their problems. They
mm,
they love to talk about what they like,
mm,
and that's the key for builders out there is the
mm,
experience. You know, go talk, go talk, go talk. What kind of question I can ask to get someone to talk? Ask open-ended questions. We've been trained as society to ask yes and no questions because it's easier for us, so we can move on. Also,
mm,
uh, that's the like part of the experience, you know. That's what I
mhm,
like it, you know. And I'm always striving to improve myself. I still have a lot to learn. I gotta continue improving my techniques also. It's a non-stop lifestyle. That's why I love so much.
yeah. I think that's actually incredible advice. Is just I love what you said about we communicate but we don't ask the right questions. I love that. And I think uh, what I, and I don't mean this in any other way, but builders are builders, and that is such an interesting thing that you said is to go out and actually talk to people, ask questions, ask open-ended questions, so I think um I love that advice. I think it's really good advice. So thank you.
Yeah, go to X, create polls, go to Discord communities, ask questions. You're gonna always find someone giving you a signal. When you talk to users, you don't need to get like a 30-minute interview, formal interview. You gotta also have your feeling. You gotta understand the signals. You gotta search. You know, you gotta spend the time in the screen also, and understand the direction that you wanna go, the direction that the profile of the users that you're aiming at, the personas, and that's all part of the experience. It
Mm.
all adds.
Yeah, and not to expect. You said another thing earlier as well, and I think it actually applies. I think there's been this idea, this pump and dump philosophy or mentality. where I'm going to go out and I'm going to build quickly, earn quickly, and then there's actually nothing there because I've just built you know, a house of cards. Um, but I think that is another important point is whether you're in tech or whether you're in the real world, it's going to take a long time. So don't be despondent, I guess.
The pump and dump and fast schemes might get you money, but if that's what you want,
Mm,
as builders, entrepreneurs, and people that love to create and grow and want to create something that will impact people's lives in a positive way, you got to have a different perspective and mindset.
mm-hmm,
But of course, we come from an ecosystem, from a space which you do have the pump and dumps, you do have the bad players, but you also have the awesome players, the people that are changing lives out there.
mm. And I think the scale will shift more to that, in the beginning as well, with, you're looking at speculators, gamblers. It is a bit of a, and I've even seen in my time how the type of person that is building has changed, you know. So yeah, I think amazing.
But one thing,
Amazing.
just one thing. Once we talk about gamblers, speculators on the crypto space, we think about the pump and dumps. But
Yeah.
it's not only the case. If you go to Wall Street, the speculators and the people that want to also buy and sell and dump, that's part of. If you work with any liquid asset, you're gonna have to face players that think different than you, that have different objectives. And it's for us in crypto, if you buy a meme token without any value in it, and you're sad because someone dumped on you, you should have known what you're buying. But
Yeah.
that's part of anything liquid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's if you want to be in the space or in Wall Street, that's part of it. You got to understand and know your risk.
Yeah. Yeah. Good advice. Yeah. So I think it's been a wonderful conversation. We've come around to about an hour. It went so quickly though. I've got so much more that I want to ask you. So I think I'm going to have to have you on again. But I think let's look at closing it up. And if you can just share with everybody what they should expect or what they can expect from VoltFi over the next couple of months, how they can connect with you, if they want to get involved, just a little bit sort of in closing about VoltFi.
Yeah, we have a very clear roadmap. We plan to be on mainnet very soon. We still have a couple steps to take before that. You can reach us on VoltFi Labs on Twitter, X, and my personal profile is at Gzani, Gzani. Shoot us a direct on VoltFi or to me personally, I'll reply. And if you want to try our alpha test net, go to voltfi.xyz, sign up with your email. We're going to send you the link. You can play with it. You can send us feedback. And yeah, that's very easy to find us out. Go to our
Amazing.
Discord community. You're welcome. Part of it, you go to our landing page, voltfi.xyz. You get the Discord link there. There are many ways to reach us out.
All
Always
right.
welcome, everyone.
Amazing. Well, there you have it. Do it. Do it now. Guy, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing um, a bit about yourself, about your Bitcoin journey, and what you are building here on Stacks and on Bitcoin. So I really have appreciated it. Like I said, it's been a wonderful conversation, and I hope we can do it again. I hope we can do it again soon.
Yeah, amazing time. Thanks so much for having me here. I appreciate it.
All right, amazing. Thank you, everybody, for watching this. It's been another incredible show from me. I hope you enjoyed it as well. We are here every single Thursday at 11 a.m. ET. I'm Melanie Carstens. This has been Bitcoin and Beyond. A reminder that if you did enjoy the show, please support my journey in building and creating independent Bitcoin media. The details are in the link in my bio. So I would appreciate any support as well in just sharing the YouTube channel, subscribing to the YouTube channel. A lot of instructions for you to do after watching the show. Anyway, and as always, the conversation is for informational purposes only. It is not financial advice. So we'll see you again next week. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you again, Guy. And I hope to see you again soon on the show. Take care. Bye.